Hi, hello and welcome back to the She Dares Wins podcast. And my guest today is Anna Bailey.
Hey.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very
You're
excited.
welcome. I'm excited to chat too. Let's jump in with the first question. She Dares Wins. Can you tell me about how you've dared and won?
Okay, so I'd say my big dare and win came from when I was about 30. Me and my partner of 13 years, we split. So it was kind of a big thing of me daring to find myself, I suppose. I kind of only known that relationship, been very safe, not kind of explored many hobbies, and was kind of like, okay, I'm single now. What does that mean? What do I like in life? So it kind of all started from there, and that's where I kind of built this love for the outdoors, I suppose. So yeah, that was a big dare, is to be like, oh, okay, what do I even want to go for? What, the world is my oyster, but also, oh no, the world is my oyster. What do I want to do? So yeah.
So how did you find the outdoors? That sounds like a weird question.
No,
like,
yeah,
you just go outside.
just go outside. That's what you do, right? Yeah. So at the time, a lot of time, kind of through the breakdown of that relationship, I kind of find myself. It was during lockdown as well, so there was a lot of heading outside, going for a bit of a mooch locally. But my brother, in fact, suggested it. So he's a big lover of the outdoors, has done it for years. With his current partner, has just kind of got out and explored and gone hiking. And he suggested that I come and go with him over to Edale. So I was like, okay, I suppose, like, why not? Like, I like going for a walk, I suppose. That's the same, going for a walk around a reservoir to going up, you know, a bit more of an incline. I'm sure it'll be fine. And I think I borrowed his now wife, her walking boots.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, cool. And we went out and I was just hooked. I don't know, it just gave me a sense of clarity and space that I'd never really had before. And just that kind of like focusing on putting one foot in front of the other, the exercise, I suppose, aspect of it. And just being in a place like so green and with hardly any people, like really helps to kind of reset my mind. And I thought, this is for me.
This is for you.
Definitely.
Do you think that was part of your journey of kind of like, you say, resetting and then finding yourself a little bit and moving forward?
100%. Like that kind of started the spark of, okay, well, I like the outdoors. What else do I like that I've not really tried before? So I kind of was continually like pestering him to be like, come on, let's go out. When can we meet up again? And then I start to kind of question the thought of like, well, maybe I could start going out by myself, which was absolutely like terrifying. Like genuinely, I just thought like, how am I going to do this? I'm probably going to die. I'm going to fall over. I'm going to break my ankle. No one's going to know where I am. It's going to be the worst thing ever. But I kind of just started small with it, and started to do routes that I'd done with my brother previously, and continued to do them, and find like Edale was like my playground for a short time of just going up different routes, going back down places, going around stuff that I knew. And then it got to a point when I thought, I reckon I could maybe start to do this myself. So I started to then find routes on like different route planners and start to go there and branch out a little bit more and go to the peaks. And I went on quite a few group hikes as well, which was fantastic for kind of helping build connections. And Instagram was a big way into that for me as well, starting to see what other people were doing. And there was this whole extra world of stuff that was available to me. I feel very privileged that I've been able to go and do a lot of that stuff and travel to these incredible places. But I started to then branch out to those and go a bit further than the peaks and go over to Wales. And again, I was very privileged that I could afford to hire a guide, so I went up to Scotland and thought, wild camping, that's a thing people do in the outdoors as well. So maybe I'll try that. So went and did the biggest hike I've done over 2 days, did a wild camp in between, and again was like, okay, this is awesome, this is amazing. And I've started to kind of wild camp since. And then again, was like, what else do I like? And we talked about climbing before we started speaking, and thought I'll have a crack at that as well, because why not? Why not start trying these things? And again, like Instagram has been a huge outlet for that for me. So I started to look what groups there were on there, and there's certain places that do women's nights, and that was an incredible space to just go in and feel accepted, because climbing is, I think, very like male dominated, I would say.
Yeah, I've heard it can be a little bit cliquey as well.
Yes, yeah, I would say so. So to have the opportunity to go to women's night and see how women climb in comparison to men, it's a very different way of climbing, I found personally.
Right.
When you're climbing up certain routes, it's much easier to work with women to be like, oh no, I do this and I do that, and you can kind of help and build each other up and celebrate those small wins. So I've started to kind of take that love for hiking and branch out into these different areas now, which has been great.
Going back to that, like, initial move into exploring hiking, it's really interesting that fear that you had initially to do it on your own.
Yeah.
Was that a fear of like health and safety fear? Was it a fear of being alone? Like what was kind of preventing you? Because I think there'll be a lot of women out there that will have gone through the same thing.
Yeah, I have a minor breakdown before I go and do anything big like that. Like I started running a few weeks ago, and that was terrifying. I have this weird fear that somehow people are going to know it's my first time and be like, she's not doing it right.
Oh, really? So it's like a judgment fear?
Yeah, huge amount of judgment of getting it wrong. There's an amount of health and safety, I would say, into like getting lost. You don't know who you might come across on a hike as well. There's always a bit of that kind of fear that you're out somewhere that's extremely remote. If something goes wrong, what am I going to do?
Right.
So there's that side of things. There's like somehow people knowing, I don't know why that is a thing, but it is. A general anxiety about the lots of things that I don't know. So going to a car park, is it going to be, have I got the right change? Have I got, when I get there, what if there's not enough spaces? What am I going to do after that? Even when I'm out there, what if I take a wrong turn? Or it's more difficult than what I thought. It's like there's such a lot of different unknowns that made me to be like, okay, well, what can I do to make a few of those things unknown so that it can start to step towards, making those things more known, and then I can push myself a bit. It's kind of like, I suppose there's your comfort zone, and it's kind of stepping that tiny bit out of it, but not completely so far away that it's like, this is so unachievable to me.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of started from that point of, okay, well, I'll do a route that I know, and then next time I'll go to that car park, but maybe I'll try a slightly different route, because it's taken away, there's less unknowns each time, or I can add on a different unknown in a different place and kind of change it up, and then it starts to build that confidence of, well, I've been out now. Worst case scenario, I always know I can turn back. I know where I came from.
Yeah.
So I'll just turn back, and I can start to be more daring about where I go, and always make sure I share a route beforehand and that I inform people. I overpack an obscene amount. Like, honestly, every time I must change, like, even if it's going to be like today's a beautiful sunny day, I would still pack everything under the sun for that. Like, emergency foil blanket, a stupid amount of snacks and water.
You're probably the best person to go out with, though, right?
No,
if anything's going to happen.
Yeah, I went out with a group once, and someone like slipped and fell, and I was like, here's my first aid kit, like whacked it out, and I was like, what do we need? So yeah, I kind of try and take as many of those unknowns away as possible, and just push myself a little bit further every time. I've never been someone who can kind of really just jump into things feet first, completely unknown. I have to kind of go like, right, what's my right way to step into this? And I think that's been really helpful to take that anxiety away,
I think a lot of people will relate to you and your story in that the fact that, a lot of adventurers, people that go hiking, wild swimming, they do tend to be like quite brazen in their approach, and like I would be the person that rocks up without the right shoes, doesn't think of all those things that going through your mind before going out wouldn't even cross my mind. I am that irritating person that turns and goes, what's the worst that can happen? Well, actually, Michelle, you could die. And I think it's really important that, you know, women understand that you don't have to be this like massive adventurous, like I'm going to go out there and jump off this and do this. You've just got to have those initial steps and figure out what your barriers are to you. And then, like you say, you've worked really nicely through those. And I'm guessing you never get to a point where it's just like your personality's not like, where, oh, I'll just go in and do this. And you never have any fear. But you've got coping strategies.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really, really helped me is those coping bits along the way. You know, I'd absolutely love to be one of those people who could jump in like 2 feet first. I envy those people in some way, but I'm definitely a worrier. I always have been. Get it from my mum, annoyingly.
It's not a bad thing. Like, I think that's the one thing that I'm learning in my older age is it's so important to have, you know, in friendship groups in the world, like different personalities. If we were all, you know, of one type, it'd be really boring. And to be honest, none of us would survive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. And I guess, did you find your tribe through Instagram or did you find it through going to these events? And I mean, that must be hard as well. Like, you know, if you're not particularly extrovert, in turning up, that's something a lot of people would be like, whoa, I'm getting into this new hobby. I don't necessarily have friends that are into this already. So you were going obviously through a lot with a breakup of a relationship to then do that as well. How did that go?
Oh, again, terrifying each and every time. Like even now, I help to hold group hikes for a group, the Hill Seekers. So we kind of hold them, and like every single time, I'm terrified. All the time. It's never a thing that goes away for me. But again, it's kind of about managing that. So it's decided in like the smaller groups and the ones that look friendly. And I've found that tribe through an amount of like Instagram hikes. It's been absolutely fantastic. Being able to reach out to people who've got similar interests and have a bit of a conversation, and they say, well, I'm going to go and do this thing and jump on. So I've got a very small group that I end up trying to plan an adventure, and it never seems to sync up at the minute. But we found that through just chatting on Instagram, and they invited one person and invited another. And that was a matter of, that was completely new for me. That was a new group and a completely new place. I'd never scrambled before, and that in itself was terrifying and scary. But I'd kind of spoken to one of the people a bit and was like, okay, cool. I know this person enough and I trust them that I can turn up to this. And at least worst case scenario, I can be attached to that person all day.
Right.
Worst case. And the same with kind of the other group hikes. The first ones that I went on were kind of more to known places again, to ease myself into it and go on slightly larger hikes. I went on one of my first ones. It's where I met my now partner. And that the night before was me going, no, you can't go, and just being like, absolutely not. I'm not letting it hold me back. Mm-hmm. I know this place. I know these things. I've done this before. It's just people. I can stay at the back if I want and actually have to speak to anyone. So it's almost talking myself down a little bit to say, these things are fine. This is okay. Worst case scenario, you've always gotten out, and given myself that, like I said, you go on a hike, you can turn back. I get there, I can walk at the back. Even if I got there and it looked horrible, I could always ditch out. But usually by the time you get there and you've committed that time, it's I'm here, I might as well crack on and see how I get on with it. So,
and do you feel like those things that are running through your mind when you're actually outside? Because I've been spending more time outside lately, and even just a simple walk, like things just fall. It's almost like they just fall away, don't they? The small things, like when you're out, you know, you forget your mobile phone, you forget things that are going through your mind. I think we forget how much the outdoors can give back to us and how much we've been stuck in, not even just post-COVID. I think before that, I think we just get into this rut, don't we, of not enjoying what is free and outside.
No, absolutely. And I'm a huge advocate for trying to get people to go out, because I really, really value the solo time as well. So I've talked about groups, and I absolutely love going out, but I am quite naturally an introverted person, as you've probably guessed. So going on the solo hikes is huge for me, and I have quite a demanding job and work life. I have quite a lot going on, so getting out and doing that stuff is crucial to me. But that again is barriers there as to I'm heading out by myself, what am I doing? So I want to try and do as much as possible to encourage people to get out into that space and, like you said, have those steps as to, okay, well, I can just do a local reservoir walk. I can do something that's not a big mountain, and that's how you just progress up and get up to those bigger, wider things of going, I'm going to go up to this crazy mountain, I'm just going to go and do Ben Nevis by myself or something.
Yeah.
It's all baby steps, I think, along the way. But yeah, getting outdoors is huge for mental health and has a massive benefit. And like you said, I think a lot of people have started to realise how important, like, we're not naturally meant to be in cities and towns.
No.
We are naturally meant to be in these places in green spaces and to have a bit of time out and not live this crazy fast-paced life. So taking that time out to go and spend time in nature and just have that time away from your phone and to just focus on, I'm getting around this route and I'm just going to enjoy the views and hopefully not get rained on because, you know, UK and all that. So.
Well, the barrier of entry is quite low, really, isn't it? Like, it's a good pair of walking boots, if that. And, you know, you can, if I suppose you're going to go for a couple of hours, just a rucksack with some supplies in. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't have to be expensive, which I think is great. There are a lot of sports like climbing. I'm massively into my snowboarding, hugely expensive.
Yeah.
So I think that's not, and also the physical side of things as well is, like you say, you can build up. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be round a flat lake. Like, it doesn't need to be climbing mountains.
100%. I think people can get caught up in the whole, as much as Instagram is amazing, that there can be the negative side of things of I've got to go and do that and I've got to be doing that thing, when sometimes it's getting out there. Mm-hmm. And I think my first stuff that I ever bought was so cheap. I went super cheap, like the cheapest one that you could get from the cheapest sports shop ever, and it was, as long as it keeps me dry, like waterproof wise, that's what I'm going to get. And the same with boots, because it's just, the only reason you want boots is just to protect your ankle, really, if you roll it. Like, that's all you really want your boots for. And if you're doing a reservoir walk, it doesn't matter, just wear your trainers for now. Yeah. Like, obviously I'd advise against that if you're going up something big, like that can be a safety risk in itself, so I don't want to encourage that. But I think it is about, yes, there's all this fancy hiking gear and you can spend hundreds of pounds, which when you get into it, it's like anything. Like, you get a bit silly and you're like, I definitely need this really expensive technical jacket. So you don't at all. No. Really, it is. It's a backpack. It's wearing your gym leggings. It's wearing stuff a lot of the time. You've already got like a solid pair of boots, stuff that moisture wicks so you don't get sopping wet, and a waterproof, and you're sorted, like, really. And then if you enjoy it, you can get those bits and pieces over time and save up. It's a fairly low, I would say, barrier to entry to get into it. And I think just doing local stuff as a starting point and getting out from there and just building up, then you start to do all the cool things. All the cool things. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, we live up in, we've got so much to choose from just up here, haven't we? Like, yeah. It is really impressive. Where is your kind of stomping ground now? Where's your favourite place to go?
Ooh. It's a difficult one because, like, Edale holds that special place, like, in my heart. That was the first place I ever really hiked. So I absolutely love going there. But in terms of challenge, because I'm a bit of a sadist, like, I don't like to go on a hike unless it really challenges me.
Okay, no, that's good.
I love going over to North Wales. Like, there's some incredible stuff over in Snowdonia. I'm going to say it wrong. It's Cyda Idris. I did it last week, and that was absolutely incredible. Nice. Just like a huge horseshoe with absolutely amazing views. And I love Wales. That was one of the first places I kind of went by myself and started to explore. So again, that's it's a lot more rugged than somewhere like the lakes. For someone who's into hiking, I've barely explored the lakes. It's quite disgraceful. If people ask me how many Wainwrights I've bagged, I'm like, some. Like, it's awful. I probably get told off by the hiking community for that. But
there's something about the mountains. So I went to Snowdon, I was just looking actually, I think it was end of March with Megan Hine.
Yeah.
And we were going to do a scramble.
Yeah.
But we got so far up and the weather closed in. And I was a little bit relieved, just a little bit. I mean, I'm with like an infamous, like amazing survival expert, but I was about to do a marathon 2 weeks after. And I was like, oh, if I like roll an ankle, do anything, 16 weeks of marathon training was kind of out the window. But we got halfway up, we shot a podcast, which was incredible. Wow. And just looking back over, I have this obsession with the mountains anyway. There is something about it, isn't there? There's you know, if you're drawn to a certain thing, you're drawn to a certain thing. And there is nothing better than looking at something that is a million times bigger than you and just being in awe of where you are.
Yeah, I think it gives like a weird sense of perspective, and it kind of, I don't know how to explain it, just kind of puts my mind at ease and kind of I feel at peace there. I don't know how else to explain it. It just, whenever I go over to Wales or go up to the lakes, it kind of all of a sudden I get this kind of like peace and calm and, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. And it's just kind of awe-inspiring. I think it kind of, it puts everything, like makes everything seem a little bit smaller as to like these cool, amazing, epic places that have been built over the years. And I'm just here for this fleeting moment just to enjoy it and, you know, take it all in, I suppose. It just really calms my mind and is, you know, I think a lot of when we go on these group hikes as well, a lot of people tend to open up about their mental health, and I don't know what it is about the outdoors. And I don't know if you've watched the kind of Bill Bailey walk-in program. I don't know
people
what it is. It just seems to open people up. The amount of conversations that I've had that are super deep, or where you've kind of, I don't know if it's because you're kind of doing something else whilst you're there and you're kind of chatting and walking and talking, but you just get so many amazing conversations and get to know people on what feels like a weirdly deeper level on a hike. It's something about the outdoors, it just seems to do it to people. That you want to chat through stuff and dig into it, and you are stuck with that person usually for 3-4 hours or so, depending on what you do. So it's kind of nice to get to know people on that deeper level. It's amazing the kind of conversations you have on the hikes.
And I think, like you said, you found people through Instagram.
Yeah.
Like I'm finding that at the moment, like over years you build up this community that is quite strong. And then I think we're all starting to realise now that actually sitting in front of someone and talking to them not through a phone is so much more powerful. And events now, I'm seeing so many more events kind of get really popular because I think we're just going back to that, we're social beings. And like,
1,000%.
Let's get together outside. How have you found that? Because I feel like Instagram is a world where the good photos exist.
Yep.
And when the nice weather, and like you say, oh, I've been there and I've taken this selfie and everyone can see it and everyone kind of goes, oh, well, I need to do that and I needed to do that. How do you kind of fight that with just sticking to, like, I guess, what you want to do as a core, which is just getting out?
Yeah, it is hard sometimes, especially when you've decided to not go out that weekend or something and everyone's out posting all their lovely pictures. And you're just like, what, are you serious?
Hike envy.
Yeah, I proper get hike envy. I'm like, I need to go there. The amount of things I've got saved, like, I need to do that. But I suppose personally, from that perspective, I just try and add a bit of reality to it and make sure that the stuff that I'm putting out isn't all sunshine and smiles. It's the reality of I've been for a hike and it was tough. I went on one earlier this year and it was just horrible. And I felt like I'd gone out just for the sake of going out.
Right.
Rather than being, I want to get out and I need to. It was almost like, and I hate myself for a little bit. It felt like I almost did it because, like, for the sake of posting, because I should go out.
Right.
And kind of from that point on now, I've been like, no, like do it where it naturally feels good. Don't find an excuse like to just be like, oh, I suppose I should go here. It's that I'm going to make a meaningful choice to head out to a certain place and be truthful. Because I remember posting that and being like, I went out and it didn't make me feel any better that day. That wasn't the right thing for me. And it's about, I suppose, knowing yourself and figuring out when is that right? To push yourself and go, no, I'm just in a crap mood and this will make me feel better. Or to go, no, I'm run ragged at the minute at work. Is this really the right time for me going out? Is actually staying in and better? And I think I'm finding that with ages, starting to know myself. And like I've got this weekend and next weekend coming up, and I've already kind of said to myself, you know, I've moved house recently. I know for me that my time is going to be better spent. Yes, I want to get out and exercise, but you know, I'm in Wales again in 3 weeks. I've just been last week.
So you got a plan of when it's coming.
Yeah, so I kind of make sure I plan this stuff in, that if there is times, it's asking myself that question of, is this the right balance of what I'm doing? What's the intention of me getting out? Is it because, yes, I do need that headspace and this is going to be really good for my mental health? Or am I doing it because I feel as though I should do? And it's just this endless list of, I need to make sure I do this thing and that thing and that thing. It's being intentional with the time that I spend out there, and then it's ticking off something cool that I want to do, or I've not done this for a while, so I'll go and do that. So it's doing that. And then with the content that I post, it's being really specific about being honest if I have got out and it's been rubbish, or posting that, like, you know, you always put that nice selfie on, but
I don't know, I never get that. Mine's always like frizzy hair, drowned rat. I must have the wrong camera.
No, I post them too, definitely, but I'm trying to do that more like on the monthly, just to be like, hey, you know those 1,000 pictures that I take?
Yeah.
Like, the one that I put up is the one that just I happen to look good on, because people say that to me when I'm like hiking with them. They're just like, oh, your picture's great. I'm like, oh, you sweet angel, you haven't seen the 100 other that it took to get to that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to post more of that type of stuff and just add that dose of reality to be a bit like, it's not always like that. And sometimes you do go out on a hike and it's not very good, or you make the wrong decision and you have to turn back. I've had to do that when I did Idris this weekend, but previous to that, we tried to do it in February and we turned back because it wasn't safe. It was the same as what you said, you know, the weather was closing in.
Yeah.
And yes, I might wanted to have bagged that and had a big hiking day, but the winds were atrocious. It was really bad. And we made that decision that, you know, you've got to head back down and remember that it's, you know, the mountains are, people say that a lot, the mountains are still going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's about, no, we'll come back or do it another time. There's no point if I'm not there to do it. It's pointless.
Exactly. And the solo stuff.
Yes.
So that is my previous podcast guest. Who is my previous podcast? I can think of this quickly because everything's pre-recorded. Dared me to, it'll come to me in a minute, dared me to do a solo camp.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's pretty daunting.
Yep.
Like, to just go somewhere and on your own, especially overnight. So I can hack probably going for a hike somewhere on my own. Mm-hmm. What's the prep for that, and what's the mindset, and how was your first experience?
It's terrifying. Again, it's terrifying. So I think, again, that's just where my stuff comes in. It's the small steps. So it's about going to, there's lots of different places, and I think there's a website I've recently discovered called kind of Camp Wild. So obviously, like, camping wild isn't really technically legal in England and Wales. I think it is in Scotland. Oh. But you can find stuff on websites like that where you have permission. So I think that's quite a big thing for a lot of people, is this fear of getting moved on. Well, what if someone turns up, or what if I'm somewhere and, you know, a stranger kind of turns up? So you can get permission from people to go and camp on their land. So that's already like one part of it that is like, that's a lot less scary.
See, that wouldn't scare me. The thing that's scaring me is I've watched too many horror films. It's literally someone's going to find me in a tent and I'm not coming back. The permission thing didn't come across my mind, so that's really interesting. But I guess if you're on someone's land that's given permission, you know that other people aren't necessarily going to be there.
Exactly, yes.
Right,
so
okay.
it is less likely that you're just going to have people around that spot and kind of stumble across you, because then it's private land in itself that then someone's given you permission to go on to.
Okay, cool.
So that's really good. And it's about testing all your equipment out beforehand. So making sure that, you've got the right stuff for cooking, that, you know already that the right type of mat that you've got the right type of sleeping bag. So just kind of making sure that your kit's all ready and prepped, and looking through. There's plenty of places online and stuff where you can kind of find out, right, what's the gear that I need for that. But I would say starting just by camping on a normal campsite is that first step of, if you've not done something like that before, just go in there on a normal campsite knowing you've got facilities that you can go to the toilet, you can go and do that. So that's cool. I know that my kit's all right. I know that worst case scenario, there's, toilets nearby, there's that type of thing. It's almost trying to do it on like a much lower level.
Right.
And then it's, again, taking away those things to go, well, I've done that now. Where else could I go? Definitely staying somewhere that is quite close to your car. So then if anything does ever happen, or you get worried, or you do something silly like cut yourself, you literally know like your car is really, really close by.
Right.
So you can jump on, or if you've not got access to a car, kind of getting somewhere there's local transport, and it's taking away those unknowns, so you can go, cool, right, these are my stepping stones and these are things that worry me. So how can I, negate that? How can I get that out of the way and start to make that me feel comfortable? So my comfort zone is stretched, but not too far that the whole thing is terrifying.
Yeah, because it's that, those first hours when it's bedtime.
Yep.
Is that the scariest part?
Yeah, I would say so, definitely. Yeah. It's that kind of like, what is that noise?
Yeah. Who's that by the 10? I've watched the Blair my first horror film when I was little was the Blair Witch Project. Yeah. So this all would come in, like, noises, people. And I guess that's one thing as well. We've talked on this podcast with previous guests about, going out for a run on your own, going hiking for your own. It is different for women than it is for men. 100%. And you can still be hiking on a route that other people will be hiking on, and you're going to possibly come across, men on their own. Mm-hmm. I don't think mass murderers go out on hikes just to get women, but things happen.
Yep.
How do you is that something that's ever stopped you, or have you ever had any bad experiences, or do you think hiking is less dangerous from that respect than if you were to go for a run down the canal?
No, I think it's equally as dangerous, definitely. I've not personally had any experiences that of that kind where I felt in danger as such. I know people that have, and I would even say that in some ways actually like group hiking is probably worse for it.
Oh wow.
I think that some people, like this is like it's like anything, isn't it? It's a tiny minority of a community.
Yes.
That almost see, some of the hiking groups as like it's a dating pool, and right. I think that has happened, and I know people who have, quit out of groups and set up their own because they wanted to make a safe space for people.
There's a lot of women-only hike groups that I'm seeing that are doing really well. And I think that's probably because, like what you touched on before, is for climbing, is that women, we learn completely different to guys. And the capabilities are different. I remember when I first started snowboarding with my husband, and I was like teaching him, and then very quickly got frustrated because I was like, he's way faster than me. And I've been like doing this way longer than him. Yeah. But it's just a natural thing. And I went on an all-girls snowboarding camp in Switzerland, and it was a game changer. I wasn't chasing someone down the hill. I was learning at a similar pace to other girls. Yep. And it's a different way of learning, and actually it can be a bit more fun sometimes if you're just with a group of women.
Yeah, and I think it takes away that element of knowing that there isn't that side of things to worry about. I think not a lot of guys, I think it can end up quite easily being like, a certain pace gets set and then it's hard, and then that's a worry about if you're joining in a new group, or what if the pace is too much for me. And I think the female groups, it just takes that edge away of knowing a lot of the time on the women, the female-led hikes that I've been on, it's been a lot more of, okay, well, let's see what the pace is. Let's wait for that person. Let's make sure we're doing that. And that's not to say mixed hikes don't have that. I've been into plenty of ones where that's been the case. But I do think that knowing that there's a space for women, it just shows anyway that there's backpacks are made differently for women.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of things that are different for women in the same way that hiking is different as well. And especially like even just silly things like going to the toilet whilst you're out for a hike.
Yeah, if you're with a load of guys, we were like...
You're like, ugh, where's that? And knowing that you're with a group of women and that's the same thing that they're going to encounter, or, if you're on your period when you go on a hike and stuff, and knowing that like, oh, well, it's cramps and I don't feel it today, and you just feel that openness to just say that. Some people don't feel comfortable to say that, so knowing that there's that space to go out for a hike with women is great. But I understand, I still think there's a risk whenever you go and do anything as a woman in today's society still. There just is. It's fundamentally a fact. Like I walk down the street and I have to think about if I'm on a certain side of the road. So it's the same with hiking. I think in general, people tend to, if you're out a woman by yourself, they just tend to do the kind of like nod and walk past and say hi. But when I do solo hikes, it's a lot about, I share my location with someone. I used to do that a lot with my brother because he kind of knew the areas, so he knew where I'd be. I would share the planned hike. I would never deviate off the route because there's so many times when I wanted to as well. I had to like resist the urge to be like, oh, that looks so cool over there, and go, no, this person knows exactly where you are and what's happening, what my set off time is. There is, I think, a lot more that you have to think about as a woman in case something like that did happen, or you did come across someone who might not be friendly or might get into a weird situation with. You've got to do almost like all this extra planning and all this worrying that I think there's an amount of privilege that men don't have to worry about that. Yeah. So I do feel like there is that extra like barrier to entry for women, for sure, for hiking.
Yeah. But it's good, and I love the fact that I love where your journey has taken you. Like how has it impacted your life, these experiences of meeting people and the hiking? Like how different are you now from where you were, perhaps previously when you were in that relationship?
Yeah.
Like can you see a drastic difference?
A huge difference. I feel like I'm a completely different person, and my mum says that too. My confidence has gone up massively because it's pushing myself constantly. It's just allowed me to grow so much as a person and know what I am and I'm not comfortable with. There's things I've tried where I've been like, oh no, that's not for me. That's not. And it's kind of firmed up who I am, and I know more of myself. Like I know I've kind of like accepted I am an introvert, and that's fine and that's cool, but I know I can absolutely be an extrovert in where the situation dictates. Like a lot of my work life, I need to be like that, and I can do those things and lead hikes, and I kind of have that self-assurance in myself now to know this is fine, and I know a lot more things about myself than I didn't at all before. So, my confidence has grown. My ability to just kind of go, just try that thing now. I just wouldn't have done stuff like that previously. I'd have shied away from it. I'd have been afraid. I've kept the same friends for so long. I never would have kind of set up this hiking Instagram. I never would have gone after the opportunities that have come from it. It's a weird kind of, I think a part of it comes with age as well. I think just kind of going into your 30s.
You wait till you get, I'm so close to 40s and you just get the fuck it, don't care.
I could see, it is so nice. I have been overjoyed about getting older. I've always been quite an anxious, worrying person. And as I've got older, that's completely changed. And I just worry a lot less now. I'm just like, I just don't care. I've gone and done so many more things that I wouldn't have done before, and I think I held, in a bad way, I held a lot of myself in the relationship and put a lot of what I wanted on that person, and a lot more now in the relationship I'm in now, it's that person gives me a part of that and what I need from life, but also I go and seek all these other things through the friendships that I've done, through the adventures that I go on, through all these different, it's almost like my Instagram's like a side business now that I've started to set up and kind of go for. And I never would have done any of that stuff before. I'd have been like, no, I'm in my safe little box and this is fine. This is okay. So me and my partner are setting up a new business now. I wouldn't have thought of doing that. That's insane. I'd have always gone, that's what other people do. But now I can do that. I've done these things before. I've done this thing. Why can't I do that? I can step my way through that in the same way I've done all this other stuff. So yeah, I would say I've completely changed as a person from then.
What would you say? Well, I've got a question that comes quite close to this in the bonus episode, but but this one feels quite fitting now. Is looking back now, what would you say to yourself if you were kind of sitting in front of yourself at that time where I guess it would have been really dark, like during COVID time in terms of coming out of a relationship? It's everything you know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thrown upside down. Like, what kind of words of wisdom? Because I think there's a lot of women that will want to do similar things that you've done, and maybe similar personalities, and they're like, oh, I just don't know. Do you have any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I'd say it was a really dark time. Like, I really, really struggled. It was, we've been together 13 years and we're like a month away from getting married as well.
Oh, wow.
So we were engaged, were about to get married. It was, my whole world just fell apart.
Right.
And I just was like, I don't even know who I am. Like, what do I even want? So I would say kind of, if I could speak to me back then, I suppose it's having that self-belief. I'd have been like, you absolutely can do this. It's that thing of, you've got through every single bad day you've had before. You can totally just keep putting one foot in front of the other and you can get through that. You've absolutely got it in you.
They do say, don't they, that you've got to hit the low sometimes to awaken this new, like, if there's nowhere else to go, it's like, well, you've got no choice but to. And sometimes that's quite a nice, no one wants like bad things to happen in their life, but ultimately sometimes it can be a good, nice, like, hard reset. And then what comes after is this almost like butterfly effect of freedom. I
genuinely feel like it's the best thing ever happened to me.
Yeah,
it's awful,
in a weird,
like,
I know.
It sounds weird, but I think I'd have just continued to just be this person who was almost, everything was in that relationship. And I was always very much like default to, well, what does that other person want? And now it's more about, no, well, what do I want? I never would have spoken up or said any part of, like, if I was unhappy in the relationship. It's like, no, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Whereas now it's completely changed. I will 100% speak to my current partner about if something is wrong, if I'm not happy with something. I'm very much more now, I won't get persuaded into things I don't want to do. I fundamentally will be like, that does not interest me. And I'll go after that stuff that I do want now and really grab it and go, okay, cool, right, what can I do to get myself there? So, yeah, I think when you go through those darkest times, I think it sounds awful and it's not applicable to everything. Like, I'm so aware of that. But I think sometimes things like that can be the making of you. I think it can be an opportunity to invest in yourself and figure out who you are and what you want, and just look after number one and go, that's what I want to do at the weekend, and I'm going to go out and do that thing, and I'm going to say that thing that I've always wanted to do, or that we were always going to go and do together. I'm going to go and do that thing myself, and I'm going to go and try that stuff and figure that out. I'd always wanted to learn how to surf. I'd always wanted to learn how to surf. And my auntie lives down in Cornwall, so I just, was like, can I come and stay with you? And I just went and did a 3-day course and was like, I'm going to do these things now that I've always thought, oh, that'd be cool, wouldn't it, if I could be that person? I'm like, well, I'm going to be that person. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do it, because what's stopping me? Why not? Worst case scenario, like, make a bit of tit of myself.
Do it on a daily basis here. So, yeah, you're right. It's freeing, isn't it? It's
so freeing. It was incredibly liberating. At the time, it didn't feel like that. It was awful. It's like, how am I going to even rebuild my life? Like, I was back living at my mum's. I had to kind of tell her that this had happened, and everyone was like, had this horrible like pity look in their eyes. When I went back and that like, oh my God, that's so awful. I'm like, please stop looking at me like that. And, you know, I was just back at mum's like, how am I even going to do this? What am I even going to rebuild from? And I just thought like, well, this is an opportunity to figure that out and do something new. And who cares if I'm 30 and I'm meant to have this all figured out? Like, that's completely changed my mindset too. This whole, you know, you need to have this by the time you're this age, and you need to be married, and you need to do that. I've just been like, things will happen in their own time.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to have kids one day, but if that works out, fantastic. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not going to set arbitrary deadlines on things just because that's what society says, or you need to go and do this thing, and you should be married, and you should do this. It's like, no, I've gone so... Like, it was kind of like my life was on this really traditional trajectory, and it completely knocked off it. And I just thought, like, who cares?
Yeah.
I just stopped caring about all that stuff. It's just why, who is it to make happy? For what reason?
Like, think of it, you've got to sort yourself out, make yourself happy, and then actually things start to align, whatever it is. You find the right career, you find the right route, and
100%, yeah.
Your story is incredibly inspiring, and I'm so happy that you shared it here with me today. And like I say, I think there's a lot of people that relate to your story. There's definitely a lot of people that will be inspired. So thank you for being so open and honest. And I'm really excited to see where the next kind of 10, 15, 20 years goes for you, because I feel like the progression has been huge, and there's only so much more to go out there and explore and see. So I'll put the link down in the description to your Instagram where people can follow your adventures. I've got a little gift for you here, which is a We She Who Dares Wins t-shirt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's been absolutely amazing.